Good evening from New York. I am Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. Thank you for joining us once again. Those of you joining us for the first time, a hearty welcome. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that we come together from time to time and have conversations and share our stories, because I believe we are never more connected than when we share our stories. On this particular program, I invite my guests to share their journeys with us. I am going to bring on my guest right now. The guest is the Honorable Joseph Harmon, Minister of State of Guyana. It is an honor and a privilege to have you, sir. Good evening and welcome to CWS Journeys.
Good evening, Selwyn. Thank you for inviting me on CWS Journeys. I recall a big last year that I was a member of the opposition, and I had a very interesting conversation with you. And I trust that tonight, in my new role as the Minister of State, that I'll be able to have an even much more lively and interesting conversation with
I am looking
and the thousands of people who listen to this program.
I am looking forward to that. I am hearing a sort of echo or sound in the background. Is anyone in your environment looking at the show?
No.
All right. Okay, good. Let me just go in a little bit into your bio. Mr. Joseph Harmon was born and raised in the West Demerara village of Port Ryan and completed his schooling on the West Demerara before qualifying to do his A-levels at Queen's College. However, because of his circumstances, he was unable to take up the opportunity and instead was forced to find employment. He worked for about a year in the Geddes Grant Motor Sales Department before enlisting for the Officer Cadet course in the Guyana Defense Force, where he rose from the rank of second lieutenant following his graduation to lieutenant colonel at the time of his retirement. Mr. Harmon, or Minister Harmon, I get caught. Minister Harmon, a few years ago, you sat with me to share your story, which, by the position you now hold, is still unfolding in an interesting and to some extent speculative way. I invite you here this evening to again share with us and perhaps dissipate some of that speculation. But before I ask you my first question, I have to make a confession. It wasn't last year, it was sometime that you were here and the technology was different, lots of things were different, and I can't find that first interview. So tonight, if you may permit me, I am going to ask you some questions that may sound similar, only to orient our guests, our audience, to who this Honorable Joseph Harmon is. So here's my question. Who is Honorable Joseph Harmon, Minister of State, compared to Joseph Harmon, member of the opposition?
Well, Selwyn, let me go back a little bit before the point of being a member of the opposition. Say to you that as you read from my bio that I was born and I grew up in a small village on the west bank of Demerara called Port Ryan. And this is where I believe the extent of my world was before I became 16 years. Because at that time, the village was everything. You had the schools, you had the churches, you had the entertainment activity, you had the sports facilities. Everything was there in the village. And you need not go anywhere else other than in the village. And this is why it is so important now that as we're in government, that President Granger has spoken about bringing back the life of the village. Because as I believe Hillary Clinton very later on discovered that when she said it takes a village to raise a child, this is something that we have been practicing since I was a little boy. And I grew up in the village with my grandparents. And at that time, of course, when you're a little boy, every person who was bigger than you are became an uncle and auntie, or a father or mother. And therefore, that sort of respect which you had for elders, that respect which was actually forced upon you if you chose not to be disciplined enough to listen to them, is what I believe molded me. I believe I was molded by a village and not an individual, and therefore all of the values which I hold dear up to today were those values which were molded in my village. And so extrapolating from that position of being in a village to where I am in a seat of government where I can now seek at molding villages, I believe that journey has been an interesting one. But it started with me in the village and recognizing that this is what raised me as a child, the village.
Mm-hmm. Take us into that village. Take us to the 9-year-old Joseph Harmon and then Joseph Harmon at 16.
All right, let me take you to the village of Port-Join. In fact, I'll take you to when I was 12 because I believe that's a more important date.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 12 years, Guyana became independent in 1966. And I recall vividly as a little boy, my grandmother waking me up to turn on the radio, which was a battery radio at that time. It was, I believe, a Grundig or a Philips radio that we had. That's all you had. There was no television. So you turn on the radio and to hear Terry Nelson's song, we welcome independence to Guyana. Everybody, jump and be merry. Oh, we welcome independence to Guyana. And that was one of the earliest songs, I believe, of independence. And it represented at that time a proud nation, people who were moving from being a colony to being independent, and the dream and the vision which they had for an independent Guyana. And that is why I believe that period in my life is so important when I look back from where I am now 50 years later to actually see that dream which we had in 1966, what it had become until 2015 and what it is in 2016 and going forward.
And at 16, who do you become at 16? What was happening at 16 years?
No, what I'm saying at 2016, okay, at 12, that is when Guyana became independent. We started to live in an independent society and things started to change. You saw Guyanese people becoming part of the government structure. You saw the changes in you had a new prime minister. We had a new chief of staff of the GDF, and we had all of the whole top tier of government structure started to change in 1966 after we became independent. And a little boy looking up, I recall the battles of Forbes Burnham and Cherry Jagan, and all of the persons in the first Legislative Assembly of Guyana, this election, the independence talks that they went to London. I recall again those photographs of the team that negotiated our independence coming off the BOAC plane with their little briefcases coming down from the Atkinson Field Airport. But these were images which remained with me, and therefore the older I became, it said to me more and more that this was something that I needed to do. I needed to be part of that process which was going to change Guyana. And so like about 12, 13, 14, 15, up to 16, I joined the YSM in my village, became the chairman of that group of the Port-Join YSM. And from then I continued to work in youth politics at that time, and recall several of the senior leaders of the YSM of that day going to conferences and the congresses of the YSM in Linden and in Berbice, and of course there's one on the West Demerara at the time when I was actively involved in politics. So that was really my grounding. Mm-hmm. I went to the West Demerara Government Secondary School. It started off at the Margaret Roman Catholic School. As you recall, in those days before independence, most of the primary schools were run by the Roman Catholic Church. So I went to the Margaret Roman Catholic School. I went to the primary and the secondary branches of the school. After finished writing my College of Preceptors examination, I went into the West Demerara Government Secondary School, where I did my GC O levels. The rest, of course, you did.
Yes. What Going back to the YSM organization of which you became the chairman, uh, what have you learned from that experience that convinced you of the importance of youth organizations for the young people of Guyana?
Well, it was what a good friend of mine called youth government. Uh, we felt that we were part of a government or governance structure which basically dealt with young people. And in the YSM at that time, you had a minister who was responsible for youth. I think she was the late Shirley Field Ridley, and she made us feel important as young people. She made us understand that as young people we have a role to play in the development of Guyana, and so that there's a lot of activities that we were engaged in, youth camps all across the country. After that, we started to burst open the jungles of Guyana. We were going to build a road from the Madhya Pataru Road. And so as young people, we were encouraged to get involved in things like that. I recall going into Madhya, where we were building this road under the dynamic leadership of Burnham, who then encouraged young people from all across the region, from Barbados, from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua, St. Lucia, all of these people, university students and young YSM young people, encouraged them to come to Guyana to help burst open the jungle, to help develop Guyana in a meaningful way. And so we have hundreds of young people who bought into that dream of wanting to come to Guyana because this was the place. This was the place to be for young politicians, young people engaged in politics who wanted to make a difference in the life of their country. And so you had a lot of young leaders, people from Jamaica. I remember seeing one of the Manleys here, Michael Manley. He came on one of the programs. You had people from Barbados. I believe probably it might have been Owen Arthur or one of the young, and a lot of young Bajan politicians, Jamaican politicians, Trinidadian politicians came here at that time, and we were interacting. And so you felt that you were part of not just a local movement, but a Caribbean movement, which actually promoted the idea of regional integration. And so many, many years later, when I went to the University of West Indies, it was something as if I was reliving that period of time in my life, where you actually were on a campus situation with young leaders from all across the region. But that experience in my life, and between the ages of 16 to 18, was, I think, a very important period in forming and building my character to the person I am today.
Now, many years later, here is this man who is in a position of considerable influence, perhaps reflecting from time to time on the young boy who wanted to be part of this development or transformative process for Guyana. Now, here you are, sitting in that chair in that office. What is going through your mind? What are you when you first assumed that position? What was one thing you were rearing to implement?
Let me say, first of all, Selwyn, that I was humbled by the confidence that was placed in me by the president, that he would have chosen me to sit in this position to help form and to mold the government of the new Guyana. So I must say I was humbled by that confidence which the president expressed in me. And therefore, I reflected on my own upbringing. I reflected on Pujoy, and I keep going back there, and the kind of community in which I lived. Pujoy, as I said before, was a mixed community. My neighbors were Indians, and up the road we had a Chinese guide, and further up we had a Portuguese man who owned a grocery shop. So you had a mixed community, people living together and living in unity and in love. And so when I came here, what I saw after the 11th of May 2015 and moving onwards was a society which was fractured. which was damaged by racial hatred, which was damaged by crime, which was damaged by violence, which was damaged by unemployment and high unemployment among our young people, which was damaged by disrespect for our symbols of nationhood. And therefore, I felt that that this was something that we needed to work on immediately. How do we rebuild this broken Guyana that we inherited? And I recall then the book of Nehemiah and the role which Nehemiah was asked to play in rebuilding his country after the devastation which took place there. And I keep gaining my strength and comfort from that book in the Bible. And every time I believe that I want to wander off and to do something else, I am anchored by what the good book says. And therefore, I believe a strength and a belief in God. I believe that what we do is ordained by a higher power, that we subject ourselves to that power, and that whatever power we exercise is basically a power which has been given to us to influence the lives of people. So I see myself as basically a conduit of power to change the lives of people for the better. Mm-hmm. And I do not see myself exercising any original authority which inheres in me as an individual. Mm-hmm. So I want to say, first of all, that that I recognize that a lot of what I do sometimes, I can't tell you how it is done, but I believe it was divine intervention that I'm guided by the Almighty, and I'm guided every single day, because I recognize every morning when I get up that I must give thanks for the life that I live and the life that God has given to me, change the lives of so many people.
What is one thing about you believe most people are surprised to learn when they get to know you?
Oh, I believe a lot of people, some people felt that I was born with a silver spoon, and that who I am is as a result of living a charmed life. But when they meet me and they talk to me and they understand that I'm a humble person, my humility has gone way back, they then understand who I am. I can say to you that last year, one of my brothers died in the United States of America.
My condolences.
And I had an opportunity to go and speak at this funeral. And I said to people there in the audience that my brother was my anchor. He reminded me of who I was and who I am and who I should not be. Because he reminded me of the humble beginning which I had. That 6 of us lived in a house which was the size of my bedroom. And we all lived there happily. We had bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, every single thing there. And therefore, you really, if you understood where you came from, it is difficult for you to vary off and go thinking that you are what you are not. So really, I believe that what people recognize when they talk to me is that I am not this guy that some people want to project me as the bad guy in the administration. But they recognize that I'm just as human as they are, that some of the things which affect them affect me. I cry just like them, I laugh just like them, and when I go to communities that I feel affected just as the citizens in those communities are. And I believe that is what keeps me grounded. Keeps me grounded to know that in these communities of Guyana, all of the 10 regions of Guyana, where I go, people look up to you for help. They want to believe that you can make a difference in their lives. And I always remember that. When I come back to this office, I look around and I see what I have is really gifts that have been given to me so that I can better perform my job, to perform and to help the lives of thousands and thousands of Guyanese who depend on government to give some guidance and to give help and sustenance in their lives.
Let's talk about 2 important women in your life who have given this world, who are responsible for giving this world this gift that is you. You mentioned one, your grandmother and your mother. They would
Yes.
know you better than any one of us.
Yes.
What have
Well,
they? What
go
have
ahead.
they? What have they? What values have they instilled in you? Maybe two or three that have helped to shape this man we've come to know as the Honorable Minister Joseph Harmon.
Well, the first value is that respect for
Mm-hmm.
elders. That, when you were small, if you were six of you in this house, when it's time for dinner or breakfast or lunch, that whatever you have there has to be divided into six parts. And if you were the eldest, you got most. So, for example, if you are getting biscuits, the eldest one gets six, the next one get five, the other one get four, the other one got three, and the other one got two. And so it go along. So that you recognize that there was also a system of a hierarchical system in the family, which sort of instilled that discipline in you. That you could not go and sit at the head table where the big one's supposed to be or your father or your grandfather or anybody like that. That's the first thing. The second thing was respect for women. And that is something that I always remember. When I was growing up, I had two of my cousins who grew up with me. Um, and they were at about just younger than I am. They were my aunt's children, and one was my sister. And my grandmother would actually teach me to do things in the home, cook, clean, wash, and all of that. And some days I would have had to actually comb these girls' hairs and take them to school with the two plaits in the hair, and I plaited the sword and put on the ribbon. And so I grew up understanding women, respecting them, and recognizing that these are the people who mold the nation. That they are the ones who actually have to go without things when you don't have enough. I remember my grandmother going to borrow money from the Chinese because, in these communities, the Chinese used to lend them money. They would go and borrow a shilling or you borrow 40 cents or whatever it is, and then you pay back the Chinese and some interest. But that is what she did to ensure that you had food on the table, and there was always something there for us to do and for you to eat. So these are the people who went without. Because many times when there's not enough in the house, she will go without to ensure that the children had something. And that, I believe, is a part of my life that is very touching, because I have grown up that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that if I have and there are people around me who don't have, I give it to them and I can do without. Because
Yes.
sometimes if you get back, and you get back more than what you give.
I'm curious about your feeling about this year. We have just celebrated. We've just had a flag raising ceremony, and now we are cruising into May to celebrate our Golden Jubilee 50 year of independence. How do you feel knowing that as a child or as a young boy, you wanted to be part of this country's growth? And here you are in this position as we about to celebrate our 50th anniversary. How does that make you feel?
Well, Selwyn, I will tell you this, that on the 23rd of February, when we hoisted the Golden Arrowhead in a flag raising ceremony at the Durban Park, it was a proud moment for me. I've seen many flags raised, and flag raising, I suppose people have got accustomed to it. But that particular day, that particular moment, I believe if you are Guyanese, unless you had a heart of stone, you must have felt a great sense of emotion. I saw when the flag was being unfurled, and I can say to you that I've seen that particular flag unfurled several times before, because I was there during the rehearsals for it and so on, and I know of the way in which it was done. But on that day, there was something magical, something special about it. That when you actually saw the flag start to unfurl, and you saw it in its full majesty for the first time, that people actually started to say, as the flag was going up, Go Guyana, go. Go Guyana, go. And this was a chant which was started spontaneously in one of the stands and actually went all around the ground. So as the flag was going up to the top of the flagpole, this go Guyana, go. It was like Guyana was moving, Guyana was going and going to the top. And that really filled me with a sense of pride. And what it said to me was that that pride which we seem to have lost over the last couple of years, that pride is returning in Guyana. That we feel that sense of optimism, that sense of hope, that things are going to get better for us here in Guyana. And I feel it. And as I walk around, as I talk to people, I talked to all of the judges who were there that day. In fact, the chancellor himself said to me, he said, you know, I've never felt this way before in my life about this flag. He said there was something about it that made my skin grow. And this was the chancellor of the judiciary talking to me about it. And several other Guyanese people. After the flag was unfurled and it was there and the ceremony was over, thousands of people were just flocking to the base of the flagpole to take pictures and to basically identify themselves with the golden arrowhead. I believe that as a nation, that this respect for the symbols of nationhood can help to heal us as a people. If we recognize that our flag is sacred, that our national anthem and those symbols of our nation, the national anthem, our national songs, our pledge, our national pledge, the national anthem, all of these things basically move and bring up people together. And I believe that on the 23rd of February, 2016, that was a defining moment in the history of Guyana. I believe that as we get towards the 26th of May, that things will get better, that we'll have a much more elaborate ceremony, and that this, as I see it, was a sort of a dry run for the 26th of May, when we will be celebrating our Jubilee, the 50 years of our independence. Already I'm advised that thousands of Guyanese are going to be coming back home, and I believe that we are going to welcome each and every one of our Guyanese brothers and sisters with open arms and let them understand that Guyana is on the move again, that Guyana is a place to be, and that wherever you are in the world, Guyana is always home.
You know, on that note, many are planning to come home and have already made arrangements to do so. But there's also this underlying concern about safety, about security, about the violence. What can you say to visitors that can help to allay some of their concerns about this violence and crime?
Yes, I'm happy to address this matter, Selvin, because it is something there are two things that we have decided to address frontally in this administration are matters concerning the environment, our physical security, our physical environment, and the question of crime in our society. When we took over, crime was at a very high level. And we admit that, and this might have been one of the reasons which affected the decisions of Guyanese in the diaspora coming back home, because they always felt that something's going to happen, they're going to get robbed when they come to Guyana, and that there's so much crime and violence. And so we decided that as an administration, we have to confront this issue of crime in a very direct and distinct way. And there are several things which we have done. The president has started something called a National Security Committee, which meets every single week on a Tuesday morning to address the crime situation in the country. On that committee, the Prime Minister sits, the Minister of Legal Affairs, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Commissioner of Police, the head of the Anti-Narcotics Organization, the GDF intelligence officer, and of course I sit on that committee as well. But every single week, we review the crime situation in the country, and every single incident of crime which occurred in the country for the entire period of time. and we analyze it and we make decisions with respect to security and crime. And I can tell you this, that over the last couple of months, starting in about December of 2015, that we launched a operation called Dragnet. Dragnet was a security situation, a security operation which dealt with the security of our borders, which dealt with the internal security situation and security on our EEZ, that is the security of the coast. But I believe that when we look at the benefits which have accrued from that operation over the last couple of months, that I believe Guyana is a much safer place now. That while we might not be able to drive down all of the serious crimes, I believe that we'll be able to make a dent in those crimes that relates to guns and gun crimes. We've had a higher level of results in our criminal investigations, and that you would recall that as soon as something happens, we're able to respond to it, and therefore crime and criminals are on the run. I believe that we have a more dedicated police force. We have a more dedicated collaborative organization between the police, the intelligence operations, and again, the defense force to some extent, that's working in a combined way to address crime. And we believe that we're going to break the back of crime, that we're going to make it a safe place, so that when our citizens want to come back home, they should feel free to come home and to leave their bags in the house without having to put up grill all around the place and to have armed guard and so on at their homes. We are looking to have and build a society which is free from fear and is free from criminal violence. That, of course, is taking some time, but we have put in place the mechanisms to ensure that we can break the back of crime, and that wherever crime occurs, that we're able to respond to it in a very quick manner and to bring the perpetrators to justice.
Let's take a break.